Yeah, and he didn't even go down or anything like that after that play. He was able to stick around, take down the Baron, etc. NONGSHIM go on to win. So T1, they choose blue side, and they will ban away the Azir to start. Not super surprising after all.
Take away the Jace here from Kana. Now we'll see what is left open in terms of Twisted Fate here and Rise. Because for T1, you can get one of them potentially here if you know, NONGSHIM decide to ban it away. Such a terrifying concept, right? The Rise pick didn't work out for NONGSHIM in the first game because they weren't able to get kills with it or get any pressure with that pick. The Hecarim we were talking about just moments ago. It's a tough handshake to make here as well. You know, if you trade them. T1 will take away the Sylas, which indicates that they're looking for that Twisted Fate pick here first if it is given over.
Yeah, they say, you know, regardless of what you give over, you won't be able to counter it with the Sylas as the TF gets banned, and the Rise is sticking out like a sore thumb, but so is the Lee Sin. And they'll take that down. Owner's going to play that one here. Dread will not get his hands on it.
Looking for potentially the Diana follow-up here would be super interesting to see for NONGSHIM, a completely different look for them around straight up hard engage for the jungler instead of that pick potential, the kill pressure that you have with the Lee Sin that we saw. The Hecarim that didn't work out because they weren't able to get enough map control, but they will pivot to the Xin Zhao here and stick to what is more meta right now in the LCK. The Diana is still somewhat remaining a Damwon Kia exclusive. AD carry pool here is pretty wide open outside of the Caitlyn Zera you see normally banned, so could see an Aphelios pick here, but I don't think you want to do that face up into the Jhin, or rather, excuse me, the Jinx follow-up that T1 could look for. And you could yourself then just blind pick the Jinx, and that is the safer option for NONGSHIM to go down.
Yeah, they will select it here as
Karma's open.
Karma's available. You've got the Aphelios if you want to go into that. Maybe not into the Jinx, but you could pick the Jhin Karma. You could pick the Jhin Yumi. Definitely a lot of options for T1. Looks like they are considering the Aphelios. They were able to get a win on that in game number 1 for Gumayusi. I don't think that was necessarily because of the Aphelios pick or anything, but it'll be comfortable for him, so he will select it here.
Definitely a lot of options in terms of support. Don't even necessarily, if you're going to take the Aphelios, you probably won't grab the Karma here. You don't even necessarily need to pick a support right now. If you really still want to run this Ahri pick style of play, I think you're probably going to have to get it here. NONGSHIM definitely considering a ban in the second phase on that mid-champion for Faker. Has been picked in the 4th slot for T1 every time. They've been able to get away with it both times. But he'll pivot to the LeBlanc, a little bit more of a hard Faker game here where he's looking for not just pick potential but actual damage, blow up potential on his own. Instead of looking for charms to help his team, he's actually going to be the one doing the majority of the damage.
Consistent poke damage essentially with LeBlanc as the game goes along. BD considering here the Zoe. We've seen more and more of this Zoe. And he was definitely one of the best back when it was extremely meta as well. But pivot over here to Effort's Leona. Not a bad idea either. Because if you start to ban away Effort, you know, you just ban away the Leona and Nautilus, and then it's like, well, what is he going to play?
Yeah, there's a lot more flexibility on the side of T1 in terms of supports. So even as NONGSHIM here, I think the focus is going to obviously be on the Thresh first. The Tahm Kench is something you could ban here, but you might be looking instead towards the top side of the map. With Jace banned, it feels like a pretty easy game for Zeus to play something like the Gwen for the first time in this series because you're not going to have a hard time in the early laning phase. And T1 can also ban the Graves here themselves in the 2nd slot next to the Akali. Would not mind really seeing a Tryndamere or Gwen ban right now on the Zeus for the side laning power that will give T1 with this composition. There's the Gwen.
Did Effer forget that he was the one banning because he's like, oh crap, like, started laughing a lot. You talked about the Gwen? We will not talk about the Gwen anymore because it is gone. No Gwen for anyone.
Could ban the Graves here and go for Tryndamere as T1 if it's not taken away from you. Of course, for Kana to pick it up here, so it would be somewhat of a risk. Gragas is, if NONGSHIM want to pick that blind here, which I don't think they will, but if they wanted to, you still have the Gnar available as T1. It's much easier to save that 5th pick for Kana here and pick BDD's pick because Faker's LeBlanc is already locked in, and it will be the Zoe that was left open. The Vex being a more common response here, so despite the hover, T1 do not ban this one away, and it will get locked in here. A lot of pick potential between the Trouble Bubbles, the Leona engages, and the Xin Zhao follow-up. It's a decent amount of poke in this composition, but it does feel very fragile, and it doesn't have a strong front line on the top side just yet. We'll see what Kana locks in as that final pick.
Feels like Jace would have felt great here,
yeah.
but he was banned by T1. I think he would have probably been picked up earlier had that been the case, as we swap over to Gnar from the Yuumi. So Gnar definitely going to be the choice here, blind into the top lane.
I like the Gnar because Gragas feels like the best pick for what NONGSHIM have to offer. You have already strong engaged. The Gragas can give you a lot more pick potential, but also can set up and give you a big front line when you're trying to hit these Trouble Bubbles and trying to operate this fragile carry that is Zoe, that has a Jinx, of course, behind it. Yuumi here going to give this whole comp a whole lot of speed. It could be great on basically anybody. As not the normal effort hover.
Yeah, not the normal effort troll. I do like that though.
There it is.
The top Tomkins getting a shout out. The Gangplank being considered definitely something you can go with if you want to add even more scaling into your composition. But if you're really looking to shut down and counter the Gnar, Camille a more common response, or even an Aurelia, as he will lock it in. We are getting Kana's Aurelia in this game.
Oh, the Aurelia is going to be so fun to watch in this composition, and it will be able to side lane extremely well. It can be oppressive even for NONGSHIM in the later parts of the game. The Gnar isn't going to be as consistent of an engage tool. Aurelia, as long as she doesn't fall too far behind, will be able to get several items early with her side laning power through the mid game, is going to be able to engage with Vanguard's Edge whenever she has her ult available. Gnar, on the other hand, is much more reliant on his Gnar bar. Will he be able to be Mega Gnar for these incredibly important late game team fights that will decide this series? That's one of the limiting factors here of the Gnar. Does deny the ability to play Gragas into this, which would have been a strong front line, which would have been consistent engage, and you could have put your focus on the bottom side of the map. But when the Yuumi comes through, you feel like, okay, well, it's going to be pretty tough to actually put attention and resources on the bottom side here against this Aphelios pick. Let's instead pivot hard to the top side of the map, where you can actually have that threat on the Gnar. The Camille and the Aurelia, two common responses in 2021 for shutting down this Gnar pick, getting early leads, and then controlling the side laning.
This is going to be a fun one, absolutely. A lot of skill expression, I think, on both of these sides of the rifts. Even we get to see carry as Yuumi once again, which, it's a Yuumi, but I'm excited. He has done some really fun stuff on this champion in the past, and I think he can do it once again. Got a lot of work done in game number 2, but didn't end up being all about him at the end of the day. NONGSHIM have proven now that they have the ability with this roster to defeat T1. I think that's going to be a big mental edge for them in terms of themselves, right? I don't think that T1 will go and get a negative mental edge from this or anything like that. They're fine.
There is a certain Jenga-esque mentality that comes along with the long win streak, though, like a 9-0, where you do wonder, even if you play perfectly, if you do play your best almost, nobody can play perfectly, not in a game like League of Legends, that you wonder when the blocks will fall. Like, when will you actually crack in a series when it's... Right now, we've crested 11 p.m. at night. It's very late here in Korea. The last game was a bit of a marathon. First game was also quite long. Interesting stat that Jisun pulled out for us, too, in the break was that least kills in the season's history in the first game, 0 and 8, so 8 total. And then in game 2, we had the most of the season, 28 and 20, making 48 kills, which is the most we've ever had. So this series has had quite a large range so far.
A difference of 40 kills. Most LCK games don't have close to 40 kills. I can tell you that. The average is probably around 20, would be my guess, maybe even lower in terms of this league. And we crushed it in game number 2. That's not all time, you know, as you were saying, this is for this split, but still a very large number. And I'm glad you do point it out. And I think the point about, you know, the blocks falling eventually is true. Like, an 18-0 series or season, is that really possible? Like, are we going to see that here in spring 2022?
Yeah, I mean,
if not, then it's just a case of when do the blocks fall, and that is a lot of subconscious mental pressure.
Yeah, and I feel like the idea of an 18-0 season is, hold that thought, we have a bit of an engage.
A little bit. Guma is going to have to cleanse here, but he has Yumi, so he's just going to lose that one summoner, but he should be fine.
Fairly low cooldown. But the idea of an 18-0 season is so unfathomable, even for T1, who looks so dominant this season, that it's like I don't even want to consider it until we're at 17-0. Then we could talk about, like, oh, is the 18-0 possible? Because right now I'm like, well, I mean, eventually you will slip up. Eventually you're going to have a tough week where you have 2 really strong opponents, and then it gets really hard to prepare, and hey, one slips through the cracks. Like, if T1 can pull this off, it will be, again, just so incredible. Kana lossless currently on the Aurelia, doesn't have a huge sample size.
2 games on the Aurelia.
You know, he's obviously played a lot of this, played a lot of the Camille throughout, you know, scrims and stuff like that through the different eras of her relevance, so.
Yeah. To give you guys some perspective on the numbers we gave before, the lowest amount of kills in summer 2021, so last season, was also 8. We had 2 games where it was 8. So that is a very, very low number overall. It's not the lowest ever, though. In 2018 spring, we had 3 kills in a game, and it ended. I actually remember that game. I'll have to hold that thought as Dread is here. Looking for the gank. Kana did take a lot of damage, but the stun comes in with the flash, and that is as easy as you would like. Kana scoops up first blood.
This is why you have to play for counter gank in this early game as owner a lot of the time with a Gnar on the top side of the map. And Gnar was trading pretty well earlier on, so I felt like, oh, okay, well, this is going to be easy peasy. Like, we're going to be fine up here. They're probably not going to look for a gank on me, right? But then it twists so quickly into a, uh-oh, I'm actually dead. I might be flashless here. And he has to, of course, defend under his turret. Doesn't flash, fortunately for him, and did have his teleport to get back to lane quickly. But yeah, if you do not stay around here to look for a counter gank, then Gnar has to play a little bit more respectfully, because without the Gnar bar, you know, without Mega Gnar, you're not going to be able to survive these scenarios. And even with it, as we've seen in the past, is he's got full stacks here on the Aurelia, and can just wait to engage, pulls the aggro, looks for the Zhao knockup, and because he's so far away from turret here, it's really easy for the Aurelia to dash forward. Very well played here by Kana, and this is why you can pick this and the Camille and other champions with the Jin Zhao to actually start to get early kills on what we used to call the orange buff when this happened a lot in spring last year.
Fun times with the orange buff. The return of the orange buff potentially here, as BDD has played a lot of games of Zoe. I mean, this guy's been around for basically ever. A very, very long time, at least. So 52 games total, as you can see there. And Faker, on the other side of the Rift, also around for basically forever. 33 games total. Very nice win rate there. In terms of more numbers, just to go back to the most and least kills ever, the most kills we ever had in the game was 2013 spring, so almost basically 9 years ago, was 79 kills in one game. Yeah. So we weren't close to beating that record, in case you were wondering. Not even, you know, barely over the halfway point there.
We just had that cool documentary about the blind pick game. The Yasuo's talking about that same year in that era. As over here in this lane, you know, even though Zeus got killed as First Blood, is going to be able to, when he has his Mega Gnar, put some pressure on in the lane, took Demolish. He's looking for some extra plate damage here, as Faker will roam up to the top side, but won't find anything here. As, I do think that the way these comps clash later on is going to be a product of 2 things, right? A, the game state with the time, you know, and whether or not NONGSHIM gets ahead, especially this Aurelia who's already got an early kill, and how much side lane pressure you can put on, but also how well T1 manage these fights around Zeus' Narbar. It's important to note, too, for those who are not T1 fans, which is, you know, a small number of you, I'd say, at this point, watching this game, that Zeus' iconic champion was his Gnar, and the one he started his career on was the Gnar. As BDD will have to return.
Yeah, nice portal jump, but it's not enough as, oh, it might be the flash forward, though, from Faker is enough. He picks up that last auto, very cleanly done.
This is just one of those nights where, you know, you want to bring back the hashtag things Faker does. The ways he's played his Ahri in the first 2 games, and now his LeBlanc, he's finding these incredible kills. Trades flash, but gets a kill in the mid lane here, playing around that portal jump. So well played here. As, you know, he's been, in all 3 of these games, such a pivotal part of how T1 have played out the game. In the first 2 games, he was the one who helped control the map by having that pick potential, the threat, right, on the Ahri. And in this game, you know, if he gets ahead enough, he's going to be so dangerous to anybody who meets him on the Rift, especially the squishy backline here of NONGSHIM.
That's really true. It's a big kill to pick up this early on in the game. Just like getting that kill on Takana is big. You can feel it on the other side. It allows Faker to get some of those items, even a couple of stacks on the Dark Seal, just to begin to bully the lane a little bit more. The early pickup on the Null Magic Mantle is going to help a little bit here for BDD. Lots of Mark Treads nowadays in this meta of League of Legends.
Well, the Rift Herald here is started first by Dread. Long rotation up from the bot duo here on the side of NONGSHIM. Now, if T1 can slow this down, Gumusi may be able to get some plates here on the bottom side. So notice how Ghost and Effort are trying to read the situation, decide, okay, we're going to back down here, stop those plates from going down. So NONGSHIM will get away with this, I think mostly in part due to the fact that they had the better setup here. They know that at this stage of the game, without Narbar necessarily for Zeus, as he does complete it now, Kana is so strong with that first kill. You just don't want to fight this. His Vanguard's Edge is going to be super powerful around zone control. And with the setup that NONGSHIM already had, T1 are not willing to take this. But because Ghost and Effort realized this so early, also no plates going over to Gumusi just yet.
Yeah, it was really great map movement, of course, as they're trying to lock down Owner on the Lee Sin. Not an easy thing to do. Still flash available here, but Effort rather is just following him all the way down. The flash is here, but Effort's over the wall, and that will be enough. Another fantastic catch as they find him in the jungle. Owner trying to take a little bit more than perhaps he should have.
This was such a good read from Effort, and also, like, Effort knows, oh, hold that thought, we're not done yet. Faker is roaming deep.
Oh, the exhaust too, but he has flash. Can they get the damage down through the exhaust? They're trying to get everything, and it will be enough. Faker is able to help Gumusi pick up a kill on the bottom side.
Oh, this is just such a great game of League of Legends already, Valdez. This is getting me some chills here as Gumusi will pick it up in the end. Long range there with the Moonlight Vigil as we're going all the way back to the BDD pick here. Owner comes over. They know the portal jump is there. BDD flashes the wall. Faker says, I'm going. Flashes to follow. But this is a good read from Effort because he knows Gumusi is greeting for plates. And while he, hides, while he doesn't show here for a moment, there's no information here for T1 as to whether Effort is going for a roam to the mid lane or where he's going to be. So Gumusi makes the call to grab another plate. But the way that he handled that Zenith Blade and the Solar Flare was perfect. But then Faker comes down here. Moonlight Vigil connects long range here for Guma. Is able to pick off the Jinx. And 2-2 here. T1 taking a pretty significant lead. But that, of course, could be shored up by Dread's Rift Herald when he does decide to drop it.
Yeah, it's really big how they were able to get that Rift Herald just by some of the map plays and denial of vision. I mean, you take a look at the bottom side of the map now as well. Owner going down allows Red and Effort to put their brains together, get a lot of these wards down, and just soak up all of the vision here. They have this first Drake. They're looking to take the second one, absolutely. And even before that, considering a bit of a dive down on the bottom side, there it is. The cleanse comes through. Is the damage there? Dread not quite going to land it. They're just trying to poke out Guma as they know a rotation is coming down.
Yeah. Guma is able to survive here with the Yuumi. Now they're trying to turn this around. BDD will be able to get out of here safely. And NONGSHIM, Red Force have complete control over this Drake as it spawns here at 1140. Be so careful about trading this out as Zayas playing around that Narbar.
Oh, they're getting on top of Ghost, and he doesn't have his flash this time. The kick is enough with the red buff, and Owner is going to lock down the NONGSHIM 80 carry.
Now, with that kill here, you have so much power as T1 to try to turn this around and prevent the Drake take. Now the Rift Herald does crash through. This Owner don't want to bite off more than you could chew here against these very tanky members, but he can ward them away and give enough time for Gumayusi to clear that wave and then come over to Drake. So T1 should be able to turn this into a 1-for-1 Drake game here, and we'll find out momentarily what the soul will be, because we've already, you know, sussed out it's not going to be the Hex Tech. If it's Infernal, that would be massive for both of these comps, and it is. So it's just that kind of best of 3, Valdez.
It really is. I mean, this is a lot of action for us, right? Maybe even a little bit less than game 2, but it all means so much as carrier. You're still on a ward. Might not matter at the end of it all. Just hops on and gets a ride back. T1 with the lead, but it is small.
So Owner ends up grabbing this kick here onto the Flashless Ghost. And he does burn through because of the red buff. It was actually very close. If he had lived there without red buff, it would have felt pretty silly, but does make that happen. As right now, in terms of gold, right, it's still a pretty significant lead here for T1. They have that extra kill under their belts, and you know, Gumayusi hasn't been able to get more than the 2 plates here on the bottom side. And I mention this because a lot of the times we see a lot of attention from junglers to the bottom side of the map, and the Aphelios gets ahead, gets insane plates because he's Aphelios, gets Crescendum. But not really in this case, and not really in this series are we seeing that Aphelios actually explode early. It's going to take a lot longer for Gumayusi than it does for him and Duckdom in a lot of the games they play where you're the dominant favorite in T1 to actually get ahead. Like, he's going to have to play a much slower game here. Does have his Gale Force online already with the back he just had.
Just got it.
Meanwhile,
okay, Owner's here. And Carry he's doing the Yuumi thing very early on as they're trying to get on top of the Aurelia. They just CC her 100-0. She gets 1 Blade Rush and that's it. Dread is here. He's like, uh-oh, I might be in danger myself. T1 very proactive on their roams, and I think that this Yuumi is allowing a lot of it as another catch is going to happen here onto Effort. He does not have his flash, and the damage is there as Owner joins up once again. Dread is going to go in on this one, but they have the exhaust again. They're going to get Keria as he bops off of Owner, actually, and Owner gets extremely low, but he is going to get that execute as BDD trying to get that last auto. He will be able to get it. And now the choppers come down here through the sleep as well. Flash available for BDD as he's looking for more, but he can't quite land it. The flash that was stolen is used here, but he's not quite able to take anyone else down.
Zayas is out of lane. Nakana's up here on the top side of the map, isn't going to be able to push any further, but he's out of lane, and T1 is just so reminiscent to that exchange we saw from the last game on the bottom side, where they stayed, they kept pushing, they got greedy, they wanted more and more kills, give me more money, and then they get punished for it. NONGSHIM actually getting a little bit of control from this in the top side of the map here in the mid lane as well. And T1 should have been very happy with those 2 initial picks they got, but they decided to push further and gave a lot more control back to NONGSHIM as a result. But still, this is not quite the same scenario. It's not the late game where this is going to cost you soul point, etc. As this is a really clean roam, and this is all empowered by Keria. As you mentioned, without the Yuumi, you don't have the ability to speed up here, get to this lane quickly, then speed Faker back in to grab a pick onto Effort, which is the 2nd kill in this exchange. He plays it so well, but then they stay a little bit long. And with the Yuumi detaching here, as you mentioned, she gets picked. As in live, we got to switch back to that because we're having a potential another pick going down there. I'll let you play-by-play the PIP.
It's okay. Oh, no, it's not okay. We are just banging them into the wall. Down they almost all go as the Yuumi here. Carrier's trying to take down Ghost. He's going to hop forward in the last little bit of the final chapter. Is going to take down the Jinx. T1 came to smash here in game number 3.
T1 is now taking such a fantastic lead. Zayas not done yet. Looking for the pick on the Dread.
Oh, man. Yep, Dread's going to get caught out here as the damage is there, though, from BDD from long range. Dread's found a couple of fights like that, actually. He's really trying to keep this close, but not sure how well that's going to go.
T1 have to be so careful about overextending like this. It's, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back a little bit in some of these exchanges when they do overextend like this, but they're still able to turn this into a net positive. They still are starting to increase that gold lead, now up to 1,500 here. It's Faker once again. not going to be able to turn this into anything, but they wanted to so badly so they could actually go for Rift. Herald. That's okay. It's all right.
Wolf, you'll get to speak eventually in this one. I'm not sure when that will be. Maybe at the end of the game. The way this one is going.
So T1 now 30 seconds away from this Drake. Have to face this Rift Herald that Dread is holding right now, and so they can use that on the top side of the map to pull T1 apart. So T1 will have to deal with all of this added pressure at the same time as NONGSHIM want to be taking this Drake to actually get the Drake lead on the first part of this Infernal. Dread's just waiting here to catch LeBlanc or anyone who's coming up, the Gnar as well. Faker doesn't know about this.
Oh, and he distorts forward. And
he has Flash.
Yep, looks like they're not going to go for it. Dread's already out of here. As probably saw the Lee Sin and the Yuumi also making their way up here. Dread going to show now. Just going to say, okay, get away.
The Drake is like, notice me, teams, like I'm up. And both teams focused on the top side here, and the Rift Herald drop more than they are on the Drake. But T1 have complete prio here. They stopped the Rift Herald drop with Faker's rotation up there. A lot of respect shown by NONGSHIM. And now they're going to have the first rotation over the fast track to that Infernal Drake, and will be taking theirs for free. And unfortunately for NONGSHIM, there's not a cross map to play here with this Herald. It's too far. The lane is too long to look for an inner turret. They didn't have enough mid-prio here to drop it to secure that Wolf turret for the Zoe. And so T1 kind of get a free objective here. They played this so much better in terms of that top side control.
Yeah, really nicely done. I think their lead is helping out a bit there as well. And it's been a really tumultuous game. Every single Infernal Drake is going to matter so much. As Gale Force, you can see the value that it gets. I mean, it's insane, right? Like, Gumayusi would have been dead like 10 times over, and he baits them into the river for them all to get basically fireworks to death.
It was 2 heavy engages from NONGSHIM. You know, the Gale Force there dodging the first, and the Vanguard's Edge is also wasted, so it's not usable here defensively when the Gnar bar is complete and they go for the turn. As Dread here just has Crescent Guard out, so he's not taking any damage. I think T1 a little bit overzealous on this, but like we mentioned moments ago, this was still a trade up for them.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, every single Infernal Drake is huge. You know, as you were talking about when we first saw that it was going to be Infernal Soul, you look at the amount of damage on T1, I mean, even Yuumi and Gnar are using Infernal Drake really well, right? Like, all 5 members love Infernal Drake on that side. And similar thing can be said for NONGSHIM, right? At least 4 of them would love that Infernal Drake.
Now, notice where the gold is. It's all on Gumayusi, right? He's the one who has the 1,800 gold lead, so it's all about him. That's why they tried to pick him. That's why he's going to be target number 1 in a lot of these fights. Cannot be caught by a Trouble Bubble because all this money is on him. And Faker, you know, is the second carry here. He's 1-0 and 5. He was looking to... I just have to hold my breath on this. Who knows?
You don't get to
quiet for a second.
No, I mean, I feel like it's admirable that they go for that play, especially when it's so close to Gumayusi getting both summoners up. If I were them, I would be like, okay, let's just wait until Guma has summoners because, I mean, it's really important.
Kana overextending.
That's going to be the kick. Let's see what Kana can do. He's trying to line up a stun. He's not able to avoid much damage, though, as he gets rocked into the wall.
I feel like there's something to be said about how T1 has played all 3 games. So this one is obviously the most explosive, and it has been some trades back and forth. We had the first blood on the Aurelia, etc. But there's something really to be said of the speed at which T1 is playing against NONGSHIM, almost as if they're trying to not give NONGSHIM time to think, not give them time to macro, not give them time to coordinate what they want to do next, because T1 is just fighting nonstop. They're looking for the aggression, right? Most kills this season in Game 2. If you play like that, it's hard to make good macro plays if you're NONGSHIM. They shut down the Herald. And T1 are just going to turn this into more mid-control. As NONGSHIM here, what do you do cross-map? The top turret's down. You don't have any objectives to take Barons up, but you don't have the damage to take it. We just love the lightning speed at which T1 play around the fact that NONGSHIM aren't quite the coordinated team. This is basically the same team that T1 played with last year, plus a trainee they used several times last year versus a completely retooled NONGSHIM. They had to play all those games without this roster because of the COVID situation, and T1 are just not giving this team time to make the smart moves as Dread is exhausted.
This is just an intense amount of pick, right? Like, you've got a LeBlanc with a Yuumi on its back with exhaust, and Dread is like, whatever, I'm Xin Zhao. I'm just 1 champion, I'm good against 4. He's gonna get away with half his health. He'll be totally fine, but it's still an intense amount of pick, right? Like, Faker is just hopping around the map. They're putting down vision as they go. He's got a cat on his back, and they're just trying to get as many picks as possible, essentially, and that's really what you want to do here.
And the reason why this works out so well is because Kana, yes, will get a turret down here, as the observers are pointing out, but with Demolish, Zeus gets one too, and if they get that pick on the Dread and identify there's no one else around in that area, they get an inner turret as well, because he's Gnar and they're grouped up. So yes, Kana does trade back, but this is what goes back to what I was saying, like back all the way at the beginning of Game 1, is T1 trade up on objectives. They almost never have a net negative in terms of these cross-map plays. As they punish Kana here. This is a pretty simple open and shut case on this one. He just overextends, gets punished, they didn't have vision. But you trade a turret for a turret, and if you get that pick onto Dread, you get an inner turret too, right? Like, these are the moves that T1 are making, and if you keep trading even on structures with the lead that they have, you maintain vision control. You know, we often say the losing team trading even is trading up, but not really, not in this case, not with these compositions where they need so much vision. Without this mid-turret going down, BDD's ability to find picks, find these trouble bubbles is so much more difficult to pull off. And T1 already have the fast track on what will be sole point here if they take this third Drake.
You see, they're setting up really nicely with the vision. They don't have deep vision, so it's not going to be like Zeus is going for any flank kind of plays. He's just trying to build up his Gnar bar as much as possible before we do get into this one, as Dread is trying to face check here. Somebody's got to do it, but somebody is going to eat an insane amount of damage right now, especially with Fed Faker. I mean, he almost has his, no, he has his Void Staff completed. I mean, he is just insanely fed, and he's not the only one.
2-0 and 5 on this pick with the Void Staff. 9 stacks of Dark Seal here now. Soul point for Infernal Soul. And NONGSHIM, there's not a play you can make really here without vision, unfortunately. And this is what I was saying, your trading even is not trading up, because if you're not getting vision, your Zoe pick is worthless. You know, 1-1 and 2, excuse me, here on the Zoe is BDD. And he's going to do a lot of damage when he hits those picks, or rather hits those paddle stars, but if you can't see where to land them, how do you aim? How do you play the game? You just don't. Now you've lost your inner mid turret, so lane is really long for BDD to play around, and there's no options. I mean, as NONGSHIM right now, you just have to sit back and wait for this next fight, hope that you can group up as 5, and play around the fact that Gnar isn't that great at side laning when the outers are already down.
Oh, not again.
This time Dread is here.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not going to commit to that. Yeah, kinda. He will be fine this time around. In terms of itemization, we saw the randomins completed here on Dread. I mean, it's good against the Felios, but it's not going to do anything against that Fed LeBlanc. I mean,
nor will it really against the Gnar, who's not going to be stopped by that. We'll just hit his CC.
Yeah, he's played steel caps. There's no mercs, as you mentioned, so Dread can stay alive against the auto attacks very well, extremely well, but not against too much else, and especially when you're already behind. He's like their main guy right now, because everybody else is kind of behind the 8 ball. Like, BDD is doing okay. You can see he's got some items, but he went for Morale-Nomicon second, built it completely because the Yumi's on the other side. He felt forced to do that. Whether that was the right choice or not, up to debate, of course. But he's lacking damage because of that. Yeah, so there's a lot.
He is, and I think the targets that he can find are so difficult because of the mobility of T1. Now, you get a sleep gear onto Owner, but he's fine because there's a Yumi attached to him and everything. Life goes on. As effort, I mean, you've got to be careful about positioning like this as Leona against a pick comp like what T1 are running. And the way they're utilizing it means that even a Leona won't be safe. You're level 9, you're tanky, but not that tanky. I think NONGSHIM's best bet here is to try to... This is so scary. I think NONGSHIM's best bet is to group as 5, fight around vision for Baron so that T1 can't take it, and then try to, while side laning with Kana. And every time they try to look for a pick onto Kana, you just back out, you leave, play a safe side lane, don't push for like inner turret pressure, but just side lane a little bit, and then you have to group up as 5 faster than T1, and you may lose a turret for it, but you have to group up faster, you have to be on the Infernal Soul, and that's power to T1, right? You're still going to trade down as NONGSHIM, but I think that's your one hope, is that T1 will still fight you as Dread.
Oh man, you're just not getting away from this. He has flash, and he's not even going to use it because he knows he's alone, and he's caught. It's LeBlanc and Yumi. We've seen this so many times before, as over the wall, here comes Gooey. You see, of all people, to help Kank against Kana. Kana's trying to get something done, but he gets stunned right at the end. Down he will go as well.
He's 1-4 now. He hasn't been able to side lane past the midway point. This time he wasn't even at the midway point. You know, I said side lane here, you know, maybe try to pull T1 apart, but they get a pick on two sides of the map at the same time. Never a net negative. As I say with T1, they get one on the top side, they get one on the bottom side. They're making a cross-map play work twice for them, as now they can start the Baron without this Aurelia, without a jungler to contest.
Yeah, this isn't a flip. We've seen Leonas and stuff steal before, but not this time. It is going to be the smite that comes in from Owner. Again, it's so hard to get away from them. Just has to use his flash. That's one of the summers you really wish you could have back. Leona's flash. So not gonna happen.
Now that this is all said and done, T1 back, they're resetting for the Baron. I think what you have to do as NONGSHIM, like I said before, is actually group up right now. You know, in live, we can't see what they're doing, but when we come back, I'd like to see them group up around this and actually clear vision with control wards and hope for a setup here. As Kana, I mean, there's nothing he can do here. He's just so far behind. This is what I was talking about with Aurelia. She falls behind, then she can't side lane in this case, and that is exactly what happened. NONGSHIM are going to do as I suggested, group up here early. This means T1 might just forgo the fight and look for some turret gold on the top side of the map, but they're so fast.
They gotta catch someone. That someone is attempting to be Zeus.
He can turn.
Yeah. You can see though, like that's the level of desperation right now. They have to just get anyone.
No.
Oh no!
Oh no! The stopwatch burn for Kana. The pressure is real.
That just ain't it right now.
T1 are just looking to fight this now. No stopwatch on the Aurelia.
They're looking for this Infernal Soul. What is going to be the case? The chopper's over the side, and it's Sinjo who gets the dragon. But at the same time, they're looking for more RT1. They want to get these kills. Owner has stasis for days as they have corralled everybody on the side of NONGSHIM. Yes, you lose the Drake, but you kill everybody, so what does it matter? As T1 looks like they may have done it here.
I think they've just broken the mental of NONGSHIM. Their early game was fine. We had the first blood for Kana, but once we hit 15 minutes, Faker was just running around the map with a Yuumi on his back, terrorizing the Rift, killing people left and right.
So scary.
17 kills to 5 here is by far of the three the most dominant win for either team, and T1 will not be defeated tonight. They will take their 10-0.
Well, efforts, yeah. Nice try, I suppose. Nice effort, if you will. As Kana, maybe he'll get it. Maybe he'll get it done. Or will T1 pad their stats? That is going to be what actually happens. T1, they are going home with the victory tonight, regardless of what NONGSHIM want to happen. And they're going to take some extra points on top of it as well. GG, the Nexus goes down. T1 will take the 2-1 victory tonight.
T1 have shown us the late game scaling, you know, that they can play. They've shown it to us in so many games. The early part of spring season, that was their MO. Just play around the meta, right? Even putting Faker on some of these control mages where he scales later. Then, in the middle part of what we've seen, you know, their 5th, 6th wins, they played a lot more around jungle. They played around owner. They played around tempo-based comps, getting leads. But in this series, it was about pick, and pick, threatening the map. It almost felt like T1 hyper-invested in this series, almost like it was a scrim. Like, how much can we push our edge? How many kills can Faker get? How many ways can we actually push his lead into killing people on two sides of the map at the same time? Like, what cost them game 2 in that bottom side push where they did overextend, which then gave Dread a little bit of control after that soul point, etc. This felt like T1 wanted to see what was possible, right? The limits of Faker, the limits of this squad in this best of 3. And when you're 9-0, you do have to wonder, like, how far can we push this squad? Like, how much stronger can we be? And the way they approach this series, I think, is almost inspirational in a way, because we're starting to see T1 grow in power. Because sometimes when you're 9-0, we wonder, oh, when are you going to fall? When is the Jenga blocks going to, you know, collapse? And for T1, it feels like they get stronger every time. And speaking of stronger every time,
whoa,
show me those guns.
Put those guns away, man. That's not safe.
Valdez, I said I wasn't going to say it.